Hello, I'm Sarish. I'm a registered psychotherapist and an IFS consultant, and I usually get a lot of questions about direct access, which is an essential IFS skill. It's less explored than insight, which is why I wanted to share some information about it. So, when to use direct access? Now, direct access can be super helpful when there's a part that's not unblending and that's blocking self energy, or if there's a part that's getting more extreme and the client feels flooded. So, an example of this could be, there's a dissociative part that's coming up and the client's feeling flooded, or there's a panic part that's coming up and the client's feeling flooded. So, we can speak directly to those parts. Or if there's a part that really wants to fully express itself to you, and you can sense that because as you're trying to do inside, the client just continues to speak directly to you. So you can shift to direct access then, or if there's extreme polarizations or too many parts speaking. So it may be the client struggling to find their connect, to unblend from parts and polarizations and speak to them with their self energy. And so you can shift to direct access, and through direct access, you can speak to the part that needs to be heard first and really like get to know it, and then speak to the other side of the polarization as well. There's two kinds of direct access. There's explicit and implicit. So in explicit, we're getting permission from the client. We're saying, hey, client, can I speak directly to this part of you? And you may also say, um, can I invite this part to look at me through your eyes and take all the space it needs in your body and hear me through your ears? Or just a simple, like, can I speak directly to this part? That works too. And with implicit, we know we're speaking to a part, but we're not naming it. So, an example is if you're doing insight with a client and their self energy and you're doing insight, it's going well, but you can see that the client's hesitating and sharing things out loud with you, possibly because of a fear of judgment. So we can just say, hey, you don't have to share things out loud. This process can work really well as long as you're witnessing the parts inside. So in this way, you haven't named that part that's afraid of maybe therapist judgment by sharing things out loud, but you've addressed its concern. So implicit direct access can be super helpful in addressing fears and concerns in a conversational way, providing psychoeducation to the client. So there's a few different goals of direct access, but one of them is to build a relationship with the client's part that's really there, that's really blending. So we're building a relationship with that part from our self energy. So we're not doing a part to part. So we do have to ask ourselves, it's super important to ask, how do I feel towards this part in the client? And if the answer is not self energy, then we do have to unblend from our parts. So usually we may have, as a therapist, agenda driven parts that really want to change the client's part. Or with dissociative parts, we may even have parts of us that are afraid of the client's part. So we unblend from those parts and really check to see, are we feeling curious about this part? And then when we are, we share that curiosity and say, hey, part, I really want to get to know you. I want to get to know what you do for the client. I want to get to know your history. And for some parts, I may even say, if I'm aware that there's a lot of criticism that this part receives from the client system, for example, for inner critic parts, I may say, I know that other parts inside the client don't appreciate what you do, but I bet you have a positive intent, and I want to understand that. So then, as I listen to the part share its history, its positive intent, its job, I check to see if I feel compassion for it. And if I do, I share that compassion. And then I'm checking again and again to see if the part has anything else it wants me and the client to know. So I do add in, what would you like me and the client to know? Because I want this part to know that the client self is there. And the goal is for me to understand it now, but also for me and the client to understand it. So I am asking myself this question, am I feeling connected to this part? Because if I'm not, I know I've got some parts that are blocking my self energy, so I have to unblend from them. And if direct access is between the therapist parts to the client's part, you'll see like it wouldn't go so well. And so we do need our self energy really there. Another goal of direct access is to explore the part's desire for change. So we're not pushing for change, we're exploring like how is it feeling towards change and so there's a few different ways to do it, but one is you ask, are you aware of how other parts and people respond to you? And if there's any criticism that this part receives, then we're checking to see like how is it for you that you're being criticized even though you're trying to help. We may also ask, how old was the client when you took on this job? And then update the part about how things are different now. You can also ask, if you didn't have this job, what would you like to do? If you were freed of the burdens you hold, what would you like to do? What quality characteristic would you like to have more of? So we offer hope for change with confidence, but we also reiterate, like, we're not trying to get rid of you. You'll be freed to do things differently, only if you'd like. So this is an essential goal of direct access. We know that the part's doing what it's doing because it has fears, right? And we want to understand them. So what would happen if you didn't do this? And at this stage, I check to see how patient I'm feeling towards this part because I want to patiently validate the fears because they exist for a reason and then address them. So there could be a fear that the part might say, well, the client's going to get too overwhelmed and won't be able to function. So then I validate how that may have happened before, but we can go slow. We can go at a pace that is approved by you. You can come and slow us down anytime you need to ensure clients not getting overwhelmed, or the part might say, um, this is all I know how to do. Like if I didn't do this job, then I wouldn't exist. So we reiterate that, you can find a different role in the client system. You can explore and see what you'd like to do. There might be a fear that there is no self, or, that pessimism that nothing's worked. So why should anything be different now? And we really validate how disappointing it may have been that the part or the clients tried different ways of healing and nothing has worked. And we may even validate how I know this is a big ask to try something again, and you don't have to do it if you don't want to. But if you allow, things could be different this time. So we bring in our own confidence. We offer hope by saying, we can heal your burdens. We can heal the exile you protect, but only if you give permission. And then the last goal is to return to insight. So we want to build trust with our self energy. So, we want this part to trust us, the therapist, so that, we can kind of go back to facilitating that trust between the client self and the part. So, before shifting to insight, you can ask, check and see, like, do you feel understood by me? And if the part says yes, then we're saying, and is it okay if now I speak to the client because I want to make sure that the client also understands what you do for the client. And then we thank the part and we check and see, when the client's back, we're checking and seeing, hey, client, how was it for you to hear and get to know this part? Because we know the client's, witnessing this happen. And you may even ask, how do you now feel towards the part, knowing what it does for you? And, if there's any self energy present in the answer. So the client may say, well, yeah, I mean, I get why this does what it does, or I guess I have more perspective. Or the client may even say, wow, I have a lot of compassion knowing that, it's just looking out for me. So then we can shift to insight and say, do you want to let this part know you have that compassion, that you appreciate it? And really, like, the overarching goal of direct access is that we're using our self energy we're lending it to the client system. which really enhances the self energy in the client system. And then we shift back to inside. So try it out. And as you do, I'm sure you're going to have more questions. So reach out to an IFS consultant. Thank you.